What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Import Modify. I did get some parts in for the turbo. I'll go over what I got and what the game plan is. We'll chip away some more on the Z31 project and see where we end up in the end, so stay tuned. Alright guys, so I got the bracket in for the wastegate actuator and I think it's going to work out perfect. Now if you notice here in the corner I made a little L-shaped marking, and that's because I need to trim away on that to clear this brake line right there, and I just need to clock the bracket just a little bit further to the rail itself to give me a straight shot from the bracket to the actual wastegate there, and I think it'll all work out fine in the end. But I'm going to take that off here. We're going to do some trimming on that. And I noticed here whenever I was putting it back together on the timing, I ended up taking the timing cover and everything off on the front because I noticed that whenever I was turning the crank without the pulley on, that this gear actually would flex a little bit to the left and right, and that's because this woodruff key right here is really loose. Now I'm going to have to go and sort me out another woodruff key because with it seated all the way down in the position, there is a gap in there and it just doesn't seem to fit, you know, nice and snug. So I'm gonna see if I can get another woodruff key and remedy that problem. And looking at the previous video I put out, I noticed that the timing mark here on the actual driver's side head, it won't line up perfect with this marking, and I did some research on the internet as well, and a lot of people have the same problem. So I'm pretty sure it's timed exactly the way it ought to be, but I think that the factory kind of misstamped the dot there on the alignment, and I just need to double check my work and count the amount of teeth on this belt from the dot on the crank to the dot on the camshaft, just to ensure that the timing is actually true. And I want to get another woodruff key that's going to fill up the whole gap. That way I don't have any flex in the gear on the bottom, because it did flex a little bit, you know, whenever I was rotating the assembly. And I just want to make sure that everything's going to be solid when I put it all back together. It's just one of those things, and it was brought to my attention when I was reviewing the last video I put out. So we'll get through this and get this all put back together. But I'm going to go ahead and take off the bracket, and we'll make some cuts on that. And also, I made some markings here on the actuator itself. Now the rod is just too long because the bracket sits further up. So hopefully I could trim this, trim that, and make it all work. If I can't, then I'll go ahead and get one with a shorter rod length. But I ended up getting the new feed adapter in, so we'll be mounting that up and just start bolting things back together as far as the intake and everything goes, and start figuring out things as well on the fuel pressure regulator assembly, and just start putting this thing back together. So got my work cut out for today. Limited amount of time as always, so let's try to get as productive as we can and chip away at this thing and just see where we're at in the end. Alright guys, I guess I can call that success. I bent it slightly. I have a single washer here on the back side, and that preloads it just enough. Now hopefully with the preload that it's at, it'll give me the 8 psi that the wastegate is actually rated for. And if it don't, I can always shim the back. And you know, I also have a boost pressure regulator to where I can manually adjust that. So we'll just set it where it is right now, and then once it's running, I'll see where it boosts at, and then I'll just do my adjustments from there. But cool deal, we made it work. It's a success. So I'm going to take this off real quick. I'm going to go ahead and paint the bracket just to prevent it from rusting or whatnot. And, you know, we'll go from there. We'll end up mounting up the drain and get everything situated with the feed and drain. Tighten it all down, and then the turbo will be successfully mounted and ready to go. Alright, so I got it all in there. Everything's bolted down. I got the feed line feeding from the block to the turbo now. Got adequate room. Still, I could put the boot on and be able to clamp that down. I got the wastegate actuator mounted on the bracket, which is mounted to the actual wastegate in the back. I got the clip on. So everything on this is good to go. Made progress. I have one last thing to do on this turbo, and that is the drain. Now this is the factory drain off the factory turbo. And what I can see, it bolts right up to this T3 exhaust turbine housing, so it should be just fine. Now the problem is this is a bigger turbo. This actually sits lower than the drain on the oil pan, so I'm gonna have to cut some of this back, and then I should still be able to slide a hose over it and use it for the drain. So I was looking at the T3 T4 drain kit that I have, and with the adapters on, it's just gonna put it too low, and that'll allow the oil to collect, and we don't want that to happen. So the best bet I have is just to cut this back and see how we can make it work, and I should be able to if I cut it like right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, and we'll see how it fits in the end, and hopefully it'll be good to go. Okay guys, this is where I'm going to need y'all to comment below, all you Z31 owners out there, and school me on this, but from what I researched, it's supposed to be 43 teeth on the belt from the crank dot to the cam dot, and that's what I counted, and then it should be 40 teeth from the cam dot to cam dot on the timing belt teeth. So when I was doing the counting, I was actually one tooth off on both sides because this cam gear was one tooth off. So I undid it, I reset it to where there's 43 from here to there and 40 here to there. Now with the cam dot lined up right here, it puts me slightly off right here, and it puts me slightly off right there. So all you guys with the Z31s, chime in on this. Let me know if that is in fact good to go. Now either way, it rotated the engine assembly fine with the ratchet rotating the engine. There was no binding, so I know it is an interference engine, but I want to be 100% sure before I fire this thing up. And I got my information off of the Z31 forum, so hopefully it's good to go. But chime in for me, would you? Leave a comment below, let me know I'm doing the right thing. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, put the covers back on, and we're gonna start bolting things back in and making more progress. so I decided to take the time and go ahead and take care of a lot of the connectors that were bad on the harness. And whenever I ordered the injectors, they gave me new connectors with that. So I went ahead and soldered those in, rewrapped the wiring harness, because if you guys that have the Z31s, y'all know about this coating that they have, these sleeves that they put on the wiring harness, they get real brittle and hard. So I got rid of all that, and I went ahead and, you know, cleaned it up with some 3M electrical tape, and also cleaned up this side of the harness as well. Got rid of some connectors that I didn't need anymore, like the EGR valve and whatnot, because the intake manifold has that delete kit on it. And when I was in the pull apart yard, I saw some nice connectors that I knew that I would need, like the coolant temp sensor connector right there for the head, distributor connector, and another coolant temp sensor for the gauges. So I went ahead and I replaced those. Now all this is good. I actually did run out of solder. I do have a couple more connectors to replace on this side for the O2 sensor or whatnot, but I'm at a good point now to where I can move forward, put the intake manifold on. And I also went ahead and put on the heater core hoses and valve, got that all squared away. So now we're ready for that intake manifold to come on. And once I do have that on, I'll start filming the fuel pressure regulator setup. We need to get that the adjustable fuel pressure regulator put together and get everything figured out as far as the hose routing and whatnot. So I'm not going to film the intake manifold because y'all seen that a couple times already on the video of me putting it on, taking it back off. So I'm going to put that on, and then we'll get to figuring out this adjustable fuel pressure regulator, and we'll see where we're at after that. Alright guys, so I came up with an idea and I winged it again, and actually it worked pretty well. Now it was very hard for me to figure out a position for this fuel pressure regulator because the power steering pump and the hoses and everything and the pulley and belt assembly that's going to be right here, it really limits me to the room that I have available for the fuel pressure regulator. Now I saw that I had, you know, a mounting point here, and there was an existing bracket with a mounting point that wasn't utilized for the speed sensor right here, and I was just looking at it and I started positioning the fuel pressure regulator around in various positions, and the best thing that I could come up with was this position right here, and it tucks it far up away from the exhaust. Now the exhaust is going to radiate heat, but still that gives me a good position to get it as far away from the heat as I can without putting it down in this area right here. I didn't want to put it right there because of that reason, but what I did was I had some flat stock and I made some bends and just made a nail bracket with it, drilled out 2 holes right here for the mounting bracket on the fuel pressure regulator, and I mounted it in that position there, and I just positioned the gauge right there so it is up and down so I can get a nice reading once I start making my adjustments and whatnot. And the fuel return comes through here to this position here, and then it comes out the return of the fuel pressure regulator down to the factory hose there and returns to the tank. So that's the best I could come up with, and that's the best position that I can find with the limited amount of space that I have, because the way that this thing is shaped, it's kind of awkward. You know, I can set it up high, but then I run into clearances with the hood and everything. So that's what I came up with. And I was trying to finish off the feed lines and split it off to the connections right there. But the problem is this barb fitting, it's just too small. It slides in and out of the hose very easily. And I do not want to do that because it's more prone to have a leak. Now I need to get online and find me a nice split, 3-way split that I can utilize with the 5/16 fuel injection hose. So I'm going to have to look that up online and then finish it up. But other than that, the fuel pressure regulator assembly and everything is done for the most part. So with that being said, we made good progress on this episode. We got the feed line, we got the turbo clocked, we got the bracket for the wastegate, everything set up, and the drain on the turbo as well. I was able to take care of a lot of the wiring connectors and whatnot. So with that being said, it's very time consuming for all the things that I was doing. I wanted to make more headway, but it is what it is. These things become very tedious and very time consuming, and with the limited amount of time I have on the weekends to knock this stuff out, it is what it is. But it gives me a great position for next time whenever I come in to go ahead and get even more done. And we will eventually get to the goal of being able to start this thing up. But with that being said, it is very hot in this damn shop. I've been sweating my ass off all damn day. I'm wore out. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the episode, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. See you guys on the next episode.